Jared Diamond covers Major League Baseball for the Wall Street Journal. He's also the author of the brand new book called Swing Kids. He'll explain more about that book in just a moment here as we bring Jared on to the Boardwalk Honda Hotline, where, Jared, I guess everybody is trying to figure out what to do. I think baseball has really a tough draw here. You know, basketball, they can quarantine everybody in a city. Hockey, similar. Can baseball do something like that? I mean, I know they're talking about playing in spring training facilities, but that sounds easier said than done.
Well, I think they realize that's their best option at this point. If there's going to be baseball in 2020, it's probably going to be without fans in attendance. It's almost certainly not going to involve traveling around the country. So how else do you do that but try to get everybody together in Arizona and have them play in empty spring training stadiums? It's definitely not ideal. It may not be possible at all, but I'm not sure that at this moment they see any better option, because it's not as if you're going to have baseball games going into the winter time. They have a deadline here. I don't know exactly when it is, but if they don't get a season started by, I don't know, June, July, mid-July, it's hard to imagine any season at all.
Yeah, I was going to ask, in your mind, is there like a start date that they have to kind of hit to get, playoff games? And how willing are they to play a shortened season, 80 games fit? And what's the shortest amount of games that they can realistically think about playing?
Well, any season they have is going to be shorter. They're not playing 162 games at this point. That's pretty much a given. Now, how few games are they willing to play and still call it a season? It's probably a smaller number than they ever would have imagined a couple of weeks ago. If they could play 80 games, which would be half the season, I'm sure they would love to do it. They are willing to explore that. They're willing to try playing regular season games into October and play the postseason in November, have a larger postseason to sort of make up for some of the regular season games that they would miss. But all of that really at this point is kind of wishful thinking. It could happen. I think everyone's hoping it happens. But I've been saying for a while, I think if you're a baseball fan today, you have to at least be preparing yourself for the possibility of no season. You're going to hear a lot of things on Twitter and in the media about possibilities, things baseball is talking about, and all of that is true. But the reality is nobody knows. All of it is just hopes and dreams at this moment, because at the end of the day, the virus is going to decide for us. Baseball has very little say over what happens next.
Jared Diamond covers baseball for the Wall Street Journal. You tweeted this out yesterday that you're probably going to see a lot of tweets over the next few weeks with potential dates for baseball and plans Major League Baseball is formulating. But here's the truth, as you tweeted, they're just hopes and desires. No one knows anything. Did anything come out from the call with the president over the weekend that gave baseball any, like football? He was basically like, hey, you're going to play games this year. You're going to be fine. Did baseball get any positive vibes?
Didn't seem like it, and if so, they're being pretty tight-lipped about it. And if there were some real positive development to come out of that call, I would have expected somebody to have been talking about it publicly or at least privately, and that has not been the case, at least with me or seemingly anyone at this point. I just think even the government recognizes that football, it doesn't start for months. It's sort of easy to say, well, we're going to have football games in September. September feels like a lifetime away. It's still spring. September was like the beginning of fall, essentially. Baseball's supposed to be being played right now, and it's so hard to think about tomorrow or next week. Everything's changing hour by hour, let alone day by day, that it's just too difficult to make any proclamations about what's going to happen in a couple of weeks.
Yep, I'm with you on that. It seems that it's far-fetched. You also wrote about how difficult this might be. Let's say they go, all right, we're going to play first week of August. That's the date. That's when we're going to start this up. What does it mean for the pitchers and what they're going through right now? I mean, they are very regiment guys who have all sorts of, timelines on their arms. Is this going to be – there's been talk about having to play a whole nother spring training just to get ready for any season they might have.
Yeah, I think pitchers might have a trickier situation right now than any other athlete. You could put a basketball player could shoot around in his driveway and get back to playing the NBA games pretty much right away. Look, they maybe have endurance problems. The quality of play might not be what you're used to seeing. But an NBA player could basically be told, we're starting tomorrow and go. Even a position player in baseball, they may be rusty, but you tell them we're going to start playing in a week, they'd be able to do it. It wouldn't be a huge problem. For a pitcher, that's not the case. These guys are so tied to their routine. They're used to having opening day and then working backwards from it to build up their arms. And if they deviate from that, they're at risk of pretty major injury. Pitching is an unnatural thing. You're putting yourself at risk of injury just by doing it. So pitchers won't be able just to gear back up right away. They're going to need time. They have no idea how warm to keep their arms now, knowing they may or may not have to get ramped back up, not knowing when that will be. It's sort of an unprecedented situation. Baseball is aware of it. They're willing to make changes, expand rosters to allow for more pitching. But I think certainly we're going to need some sort of extra spring training. The pitchers I talked to have said anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks would be really a minimum they would need to get ready.
Jared Diamond's with us, Wall Street Journal national baseball writer. Your thoughts on players like Mookie Betts, JT Realmuto here with the Phillies that – I mean, I know this was collectively bargained, but some of these teams could really end up with egg on their face if they don't have a season and then lose these players. Is that something that the teams were the teams were comfortable giving up?
No, they weren't comfortable giving it up, but this was the line in the sand the players' union drew because they pushed so hard that players would get service time even if there's no season. And the reason for that is that in the eyes of the players' union, losing a year of service time would have 6 years of financial ramifications for players because it would delay everybody's free agency and it would cost them probably billions of dollars, honestly, ultimately, if you play it out all the way to its conclusion. So they said if we're going to have no season, there's going to have to be service time for players. And the owners did agree to it. I'm sure not willingly. They agreed to it sort of in exchange for a promise that they won't have to pay out full salaries if there is no season, that players waive their right to sue them for their full salaries. That was the trade they made. And, yeah, there are certainly some teams for whom it stinks. If there's no season, it really stinks for the Dodgers. They traded guys to get Mookie Betts, and they wouldn't get to use them. But this is something we've never experienced before, and it's very hard to sort of look at it from a normal baseball standpoint. I know that's what we're all going to do. It's our job to do that, but we've never even considered something like this happening. I can't fault Andrew Friedman for making that trade and not factoring in the possibility that the season will be canceled because of a global pandemic.
Right. Touche, yes. And obviously the Phillies with JT Realmuto, they did get one season out of him last year, but who knows what ends up happening. They know that they've been trying to get a deal done, and so far, nothing. I guess in this time frame, too, it's hard to kind of, like, you would think, all right, we got nothing else going on. Let's hammer out a deal if you're JT Realmuto and the Phillies. But I guess it's hard to get any movement going on that front.
It could be. I don't know what this is. If there's no season or even a short season, I have no idea what it's going to do with free agency. Will free agents be more willing to sign deals because they have no statistics from 2020 to sort of, boost themselves with? I have no clue. It's going to be fascinating no matter what, whenever baseball and all sports come back, because there's going to be all of these issues that nobody had ever even dreamed of until 3 weeks ago that are going to have to be worked out. And this is one of them. How is the employment market going to respond to no season or a very short season, or in other sports, the cancellation of a season potentially midway through, like in the NBA or NHL? It really, these are all issues that no one ever could have even imagined. And now we're all sort of living them every day.
Jared, your new book is out. It's just fantastic. Swing Kids, the inside story of baseball's home run revolution, which, you got the anti-swing kids, people who don't like to hear launch angle and any of this terminology. But, hey, give us a little insight on the book and some of the things that you kind of chronicle in this book. It's funny, we had Billy Ripken on Friday's show, and he's got, like, all the anti-analytic stuff, and, and it seems like the other side with all the launch angle and all these new terms that has baseball fans kind of butting heads with each other.
It's definitely been a bit of a fight. What the book is really about is focuses on a group of players, star players that all of us know, guys like J.D. Martinez, Justin Turner, Josh Donaldson, and others, who sort of resurrected their careers by changing their swings, in radical ways with the help of some pretty radical people, these independent swing coaches, these gurus out there who never played or coached in pro baseball and yet are teaching a version of the baseball swing that goes against decades, generations of baseball conventional wisdom. And it's paid off. And what it's done is it's created really a revolution in the game about who's qualified to teach hitting and how we teach it.
Mm-hmm.
And certainly there's folks that it's rankled, that say that this is somehow bad for baseball. And that's really what the story is about, how this has happened, what it means, and where this is all headed.
Yeah, it's interesting because you got a lot of young kids, younger, 12, 13, 14, 15-year-olds are being taught to swing like these major leaguers who are, launch angle and exit velocity, and they're just not strong enough to really utilize it the way that these players are. So I find it, there's this battle at the high school level where you got kids popping up all the time because they're trying to swing the bat like Aaron Judge or J.D. Martinez does. So it seems like that old school, new school approach has definitely worked for some, but in terms of success at a younger age, it seems to be a tough sell right now.
It's tricky. It's a tricky balance. One thing that we know is that going back 50 years ago to The Science of Hitting, Ted Williams' book, Ted Williams, of course, maybe the greatest ever to pick up a bat. He wrote in that book in 1970 that you've always heard the ideal swing was level or down, but in his mind, that's wrong. And the ideal swing is up, and you want to try to hit the ball in the air. The numbers bear that out, but the question becomes, how do you go about teaching it? How do you enforce these messages in a way that helps players and doesn't hurt them? You're absolutely right that in youth baseball, there's real incentive often to hit the ball on the ground as opposed to the air. First of all, in youth baseball, there's a lot of errors made. Hitting the ball on the ground is actually a pretty good way to get on base when you're 10 years old. So it's created this debate about what do we teach? Do we teach for positive results now of these kids when they're 12? Or are we teaching them a swing that may not be as effective today, but will be when they get older? Frankly, I don't know the answer. I'm not a youth coach, but these are some of the issues that's happening all around youth baseball right now.
Yeah, check out the book. It's called Swing Kids, The Inside Story of Baseball's Home Run Revolution. Jared Diamond from the Wall Street Journal, their national baseball writer. He talked to some of the biggest stars, Aaron Judge, J.D. Martinez, Justin Turner, who all remade their swings, and he chronicles it in this new book called Swing Kids. I know a lot of people out there listening. We all have plenty of time on our hands. We're all reading a bunch of books. Put Swing Kids into your rotation and check that out, and hopefully in the next couple of days or coming weeks, we have a better idea of when we might see some of these swings in real live baseball games. Jared, it's always a pleasure. We thank you so much, man.
Yeah, thanks so much, guys. Appreciate it.
You got it. Jared Diamond, as he just said there, any possible dates or anything like that is just that. It's all just speculation. We don't really have a firm feeling for baseball. I think the other sports are in a little bit of a different situation because now, as he mentioned, he didn't seem to throw Florida into the mix. It sounded as if they would just use Arizona and play a lot of games there. Once things kind of change, we'll get a little bit more information on that. Jared, a national baseball writer for the Wall Street Journal, does a great job of getting us information on the national story, so we'll tap back in to him.